This is Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell on the Forge Audio Network.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Forge Daily. I'm your host, Mackenzie Barwell, coming to you on this beautiful sunny morning. It is May 2nd, 2024. Yesterday, Forge FC matched up against York United for the second time this year now, but yesterday it was for the preliminary round of the Canadian Championship. They would come away with a 3-1 victory, meaning now they are taking on CF Montreal for the quarterfinal round. Because we're coming off another game day, I am joined by none other than Steve Milton. He and I are going to break down everything that went down yesterday, but also what to expect coming up for the quarterfinals. So let's get right into it because there's a lot to talk about. We thought Forge had a good start to the 2023 season. Now look what we're dealing with. All right, let's welcome Steve Milty to the show. All right, the Mac and Milty Show is back and better than ever for episode 3. Milty, where's your head at after you wrote an article quite literally titled, Forge needs to impose themselves on York United early and often? I think that's kind of what we saw last night.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Well, they did what they had to do, didn't they? I mean, we're talking about, of course, Forge beating York United 3-1, but they had 2 goals in the first 17 minutes and could have had another one on a beautiful setup by Daniel Parra just a little bit after that. Got another one before the half, 3-0. This was really over at the half, even though I thought York actually played fairly well at moments in the second half. But they were no match when Forge put their foot to the metal, don't you think? I mean, and how much do you think, Mac, that the game they had against Valor on Saturday, and we talked about it on Monday, saying they can't be happy with that, but it might be a good teaching tool.
Oh, absolutely. They came out firing. You saw it right out the gate. I mean, I think to your point, too, about York, they could have easily folded after 2. And I think they weren't naturally happy going into the locker room at halftime, but they stood their ground in the second half. And, you know, that's a testament to who they are and their culture as a team and their ability to, you know, stick to their principles and not kind of fold. But you talk about that game against Valor for Forge. Yeah, no kidding. It was a reality check. We talked about it. And I think that they recognized that. And that probably contributed to the energy they brought out at that first whistle. How about that result, though, Milty? Valor and Ottawa, just for a second. Did you see that?
No, did it end up? The last I saw, I think it was 6-1 or something like that.
7-0.
7-0, I should say. That's right. Yeah, that's not good. I mean, everybody's been waiting for Atletico to break out. They actually haven't lost. They just had a couple of draws in there. So everybody thought they made all the super signs. That's the team everybody talked about in the offseason in the CanPL. And I mean, they'll always talk about Forge, they'll always talk about Cavalry. But Atletico is the one that everybody said is going to join those other two. We'll wait and see. And quite a few people, you know, broke loose, and I think they spread their scoring around pretty thickly, and it's probably good for them to do it. I mean, Valor, though, they're gonna, this is really, really tough for them. They have to play, and we'll remind listeners and viewers that Valor's playing their first 8 games on the road, including that one, which was the Canadian Championship one, and that's really difficult if you come back at 1-7 or one. You know, if you've lost every game or you've only won one. And you're already out of it essentially because given the quality of the top 3 or 4 teams in this league.
Oh yeah, and especially, you know, conceding in a way like that, and then having, I think it's at least 3 more on the road until their turf is ready.
I think 4.
I think something like that. They'll be happy if they get at least 1 or 2 wins under their belt. But you talk about the conversation around Forge and Cavalry and potentially Ottawa joining them in terms of groups dominating this league. I have a feeling most of the conversation will be around Forge FC, especially following that match yesterday. Now we're 4 for 4 of games thus far in 2024. We're home opener and after.
Right.
Jordan Hamilton was a big topic of conversation starting for the first time this season. And I think he did a good job at proving himself. Obviously, he has some experience in the Canadian Championship, winning it twice with TFC, actually. And he comes out and scores two. I thought about you because they were kind of opportunities to tap in, but he was in the right spot at the right time.
At the right time, well, man, what can you say about Tristan Borges? I mean, the first goal was a long, long setup, perfectly into the box, and I'll remind everybody it was into the wind.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Jordan, the goaltend keeper, did not play it as well. That goaltender should have been out much earlier. I mean, he was caught between the devil and the deep blue sea there, and I think he thought the defender might get up on him a little better too.
Yep.
But what a beautiful header on it, it has to be frustrating for Jordan because he starts on most teams in the league probably, and now he's so far been brought off the bench, and he said, on this team you never know until right before game time, at home games, so you know a little more in advance on the road because you have training on the road an extra day. So. But they don't know until right beforehand, and he was very glad. And it was good coaching for Bobby, and it's the right thing to do. There were 3 games in 11 days. No, 3 games in 8 days. And this one, you probably felt that you could, get his legs. And he's been great coming off the bench.
Oh, totally.
So yeah, good for him. But again, Tristan Borges, 2 incredible. It's just that second goal of the game, which was
Dav Choinière?
That was Choinière's goal. And what kind of start is he having? Like, it's quite chemical what's going on between Borges and Choinière right now on the right side, and sometimes they can. I wouldn't be surprised if occasionally they switch him over to the left side just for a little variety, but. It's what they did against York in York. They owned those outside spaces, and York played a little better in a lot of ways because their counterattack was good. I just want to go back to Borges, Mac. I mean, it's just having an incredible, incredible. That goal. If there was 3 assists given in soccer, all of them were true assists.
Oh, totally.
5 people touched the ball on the way inside the final third.
Yeah.
And they just bang, bang, bang. And a beautiful by Para made an incredible play. And Benny with his usual back flick off his heel. I don't know how many he does those. He does those. I counted 3 in the first half last night. I mean, it's one of his things. Did you really? Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
That he likes to do. Yeah, once against 4 people where you say, don't be doing that, please. Please don't be doing that when you're the last guy back. Don't go into 4 people and try and do a backflip. But and then he makes those incredible plays. I think it was how did it work? I think it went to Pera to Benny, back to Borges, and then to Choinière. Borges actually was in there before there too. Borges touched it twice in that series.
Yeah, so, and he went for the shot initially. Was so close, right off the post, and then Dav goes bar down for a second goal. Come on, that is quality.
There was a lot going on there, and of course after Jordan got his 3rd one, then this one was toast. And other than seeing if York could gain some, they won the second half, and they said that afterwards. They said, "Well, that's something. It's nothing really to them." They said, "Well, look, we can't take too much consolation in that, but we did win the second half. We got a goal." And so they've got some work to do, but they looked much stronger, I thought, than they did in York 11 days ago. Same thing early. They just weren't quite ready for. I mean, there was a little bit of they were okay for a few minutes early, and then let's not forget this: they forced Kalongo to make 3 dynamite saves. I mean, he saved 3 goals. Those balls were targeted. The other way, if you look at it the other way, Borges had 4 shots on the net and 3 of them went in. So that's making use. That's what you have to do, is make the most use of their chances. They had a few others that a couple off that were great chances, but just didn't happen for them.
A testament to Chris Kalongo, that first one of the first saves he made. He was tested by Mo Babuli, and he goes away with All-State save of the match. Pushes it again over the crossbar. That's his favorite move, I think, right now.
Well, of course it is, and it showed. I think he's got one thing I really like about him. He's very athletic, and his hang time. So
he
it was
gets
really
up there.
noticeable. And one save against Valor, but you saw it again on that play, the hang time, which allows him to, if you're up a bit, then you can kick back and then throw it up, and he knows where that post is. He's got tremendous hands. He's got tremendous hands.
And I thought they made
So,
I thought they made a good point on the broadcast too, like his ability not only to make these crucial saves but push them away. You know, you talked
right.
about saving and then either corralling or pushing it to safety, and it seems as though Chris has been kind of on the mark for that.
I agree, and that comes with reading the play. He's got a good soccer mind, and that's why he's a good distributor too. Actually, he had a couple of odd distributions last night. I think his first two, maybe it was just one, what I would call Mr. Distributions last night, where he just kicked one out of bounds, or kicked it out there where nobody could get it. So, and that seemed to be, but learning curves are not, they're the curves. They're not straight line things. They don't go up. They go back and forth, and sometimes and he'll have some setbacks. There's no doubt he will have. I think his teammates would have liked to see him have the feeling of a clean sheet in the Canadian Championship.
Oh man, so close, eh?
But when you have to make 3 big saves, then you're probably not going to get a clean sheet in there.
Yeah.
And Bobby said you got to be this way on Forge, because the other team will get the odd, just in case they get trapped downfield, which they did a couple times, right? Because they press so hard, that's what's make them such a joy to watch. Games against them, the other team gets a little bit sometimes too. They get a little bit of open space in the middle, and they're very good at coming back, and their back four is so good, even with injuries.
Oh man, yeah. I wanted to get to that too.
Okay, well, let's get to it. Go ahead.
Let's get right to it.
Right. Okay,
Well,
Dr. Mac, please go ahead.
To your point, I mean, for us to notice maybe Kalongo had a missed pass in the first half, like for us to even notice that and point that out, that's an accomplishment in itself,
Standard. That's pretty high bar. Yeah.
He's setting the bar very high for himself. Yeah. I remember the one pass he missed. And so yeah, I'm liking the bar that
like Mr. Einstein, your penmanship isn't very good,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. So. That's the equivalent. But looking at this back line, just quickly, you talked a little bit about Daniel. He went 6 for 6, I believe, in duels won in the first half. I'm not sure what the stat was for him in the second half, but he opened up just so composed. I saw him multiple times dribble through very congested situations.
The spin and go was incredible. The spin and goal was of major league caliber.
Man, I really am excited to watch him throughout the rest of the season. And Garvin, I mean, great showing for him as well, considering he's coming off that injury. Sorry, I was really excited to see him do his thing. He came off a little early, but what are your thoughts on what we saw from Garv?
No, I thought he was fine. There was a couple plays that the rustiness showed a little bit where York on the counterattack did some well, but he adjusted extremely well to that, and ended up forcing. It was most often it was Alex that did it, but they ended up forcing the Woolley a little bit more than he wanted to be forced. They made on a couple times they made a tremendous wall. And the other thing is they got Dom back in to get him some minutes, which was very good. And that's, part of why did he come in directly for Garvin? I think he probably did.
Yeah, he came in, I think, around the 70th minute. I'm not sure who for.
Yeah, and so he got some 30 minutes in there and mixed it up a little bit. And speaking of mixing it up, it was pretty rugged game, wasn't it?
Okay, so this too, I would say obviously that first half, a little bit more noticeable that this was a rivalry. I mean, a red card going to head coach
to the bench. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The trainer. Yeah, the trainer. That's what
I
said. What if somebody gets hurt here now? What happens?
Yeah. I thought it was Martin Nash. I don't know, but there were cards kind of given out left and right, especially in that first half.
And then they got a little loose on them, even though there were some crazy ones. Because I mean, let's not pull any punches here. Referees are always aware who's got yellow cards, and you want to make sure if you're giving that second yellow card. And for the casual fans, we'll just remind you that if you get a second yellow card, the becomes a red card in a game, and then you're down. You're down a man, and that doesn't happen when it's a bench penalty, so to speak. What would be called in hockey a bench penalty.
That's good
but
to know.
Their bench was fuming, and they would not shut up after there was some. And actually, I think they had an argument. It's just you don't make that argument at that kind of volume. You're never going to win it.
Right.
But what it does is distract your players.
So was the argument on the bench?
No, but I'm saying they had. I don't mean an argument among each other, but they had a basis for some of their complaints.
Oh yes.
Both teams did in a way. There was some inconsistencies there. There'd be a tackle that was called one way, and it wasn't a set. Either team, both teams had that. There was a lot of holding that I thought should have been yellow. It took. I think who got thrown to the ground? Was it Borges that actually got wheeled around like he was doing a do-si-do, and somebody lost somebody lost his handle, like when you on the rink and you play.
I got the visual.
Crack the whip, and the last person goes flying over the boards. Well, it took that to get a yellow card, and there was a lot of holding going on out there. Totally. I will say this: you're going to rough. First of all, it's a mistake to try to rough Forge up. It really is.
Yeah,
they're rougher than you are. However you slice it, they're rougher than you are, almost to the man. Maybe not every single man on that team, but a lot of them. I'm not tangling with Becker or Alex or Dom or even Borges or any of those guys.
No, thank you.
No. So it's a tactic in a way because it'll throw off the rhythm, and that's what they were trying to do. And at times it kind of worked, but Forge is going to come through that because they are freaking relentless. Yeah. Now they're not perfect, and let's also be honest here. They really haven't played anybody yet. Not anybody that's going to challenge for CPL supremacy this year. I don't think. I mean, I think York's got some players that we might see them sneak up into that fourth spot at some point. I haven't seen the other teams in detail yet. I've only seen them on TV. So, see.
Borges talked about that in his post-game interview. He said, you could see it get aggressive out there, but he's not one of those guys who's going to back down or shy away from a little aggressiveness, especially when it comes
to... For a calm guy, he's very aggressive.
Yeah, and his teammates, right? So he said, it's just the competitive nature of this rivalry, and he seemed to be pretty well-spirited after the game. So, it's just a part of the...
I think that's okay. I mean, the rivalries have to start somewhere, and actually, it kind of started. I mean, it starts with geography. It'll build up as we talked about earlier this week with the York ownership, and they have some commitment, and they've got to move slowly, and they really don't have a farm type system right now, and that's why they had to go and get certain players to fit certain holes right now because they wanted to. You've got to get out of this while we're always fighting for 6th, 7th, 8th. You've got to get out of that mindset. And, basically it's like a soccer pitch, which is divided into 3. Most leagues have 3 tiers, an upper, a middle, and a lower. And you've got to get to the middle before you can get to the upper. And it might take time for them. But at least there is some spiritedness there. And, There'll be some more of this physical stuff too, because nobody's going to forget that on either side.
Oh, 100%.
Nobody. I mean, there were a couple of people there that were really pissed off. So,
absolutely, it'll make for interesting.
And I like that
matches. I was going to say, is it appropriate to say that it was entertaining to watch?
Sure, why not? Remember where we are, right? First of all, we're in Hamilton.
Exactly
so,
right.
So you can start with that. Now they've finally met. They've met in a sort of cup pursuit match. It didn't, and down the road, it's just going to say 3-1.
That's right.
And like 8 years from now, if you happen to be going over the records, and let's say they become really good rivals, you say, well, that was a pretty close game. When we all know it wasn't.
Right.
So,
right.
But it doesn't matter. 3-1. So.
Looking ahead now, Milty, I wanted to get your take on something that was also just announced. Obviously, Forge will now take on CF Montreal, which is its own conversation, and we'll get to that. But the away goals rule will be in place for the quarter and semi matches of the Canadian Championship. And for anyone who doesn't know, just in case some listeners are unaware, this is essentially a tiebreaker. So it'll make away goals mean a little bit more. Someone gave
Right.
me the example. I have to shout out one of Forge FC's best ticketing representatives, Tom Walker. He said, for example, let's say in these two next matches against CF Montreal, they come here, let's say they tie 1-1. Forge FC hypothetically go there, they tie 2-2. Forge would ultimately go on because they scored more away goals.
Right.
So, your thoughts on that? Obviously, we know it was present in Champions League for a while, but it no longer is. I've heard some different opinions on this, but it'll make things interesting for sure, because now there's a little bit more of an inclination to attack when you're away from home.
Well, yeah, in home and home away series, that is often the case where it'll be. I mean, they when they played in Champions League back in the CONCACAF, that doesn't exist anymore. Where you had to basically finish in the top 2 or 3 of that league to advance to Champions Cup, which Forge did once, and they were used to some of that, and I think it's a great rule. Always have since they instituted it elsewhere before the CPL even started for 2-game series, and it because they were just so boring. The team would come into the other team's place and just try to they go into this massive shell trying to not allow them to score, so that when they get home and they can win 1-0. And
it's just like dropping back and defending, right? When you're away.
I got sleeping pills that don't work as well as that. So that's what So that's one of the great things. I mean, they've made a few changes. They still hang on to some crazy rules, but that's one of them. And I don't just think shootout is a way to decide anything, but there's not anything. I mean, it's such a long-standing soccer tradition. I mean, I don't like it in hockey. You've got to use it in tournaments because of time frames and those kinds of things. But really, let the players decide. And so if you can do anything like that keeps things away from shootouts, if you can, that's just one little thing. But So what you try to do is top the other team generally. And there's different ways of handling it. It all depends on who you're playing. I mean, Forge are playing a team that, on paper, is better than them. But here's one thing I'm going to remind everybody: they don't play the games on paper. They play it on turf in this case, and grass in Montreal's case. So things can happen. And so, what the idea for the Forge, likely as the team who's not ranked anywhere near as high as Montreal, is to you got to hold them away basically in the first half, and then hopefully you can press. Depends on the wind. That's the other part too. In this stadium, if there's a wind, it's a day game, so there'd be a little bit less of a wind. Normally, the wind comes up more at night. Like I'm looking out there now, the wind is marginal, and this is about the time the game's going to be played. It'll be just finishing up about this time on Tuesday. So they'll want to try, and you got to make sure that the other team doesn't score, and then if you can, you got to and you got to withstand the other team when you go home, because it's a real advantage, a serious advantage, having the back end of a series like this, because you know what you have to do right at home, and I mean both teams know what they have to do, but it's much more of an advantage to the home team. So, if they have a lead, they know how they can nurse it. If it's 0-0, they know they get the first goal, and then really just try to make sure that an away goal doesn't kill them, right? So and that's the advantage that Forge will not have in this competition against teams like this, and they won't have it in definitely if they get to Champions Cup again, because they haven't played enough CPL games, which is the majority that they have. Don't give you many points when they're ranking teams within CONCACAF.
Right. Yeah, I just said earlier and interrupted you early and often. I feel like that's got to be the consistent mentality here, because clearly it's working. We talked about it briefly in the last episode. I know Dom went out of his way to tell me, like, if we can get up 2-0, 1-0, we have too much quality to concede enough so that we lose.
Dom doesn't pull too many punches on those kinds of things, does he? So but they're facing the good team, and I don't have the numbers this time, but remembering that CPL has a very tight salary cap. They have fewer players on the roster too, if just a slightly fewer number, and so some of the players can get rest. More players can get rest if and Montreal's going to take this very seriously too, and it's a major thing for them. You know, they want to get it into the next round. I believe in the side of the bracket, it's Toronto. Whoever wins this game is likely playing Toronto and TFC, and there's also history between these two teams. There's a lot going on here. A lot of Montreal players on this team here.
Oh, 1,000%.
On Forge, and they've got some things to prove. Two brothers, Choinières, on either team.
That's another storyline too, Milty, because I guess Matthew Choinière has requested a transfer from CF Montreal, so it'll be interesting to see the dynamic and what they bring to this game. But that's my favorite, watching them two battle it out.
Yeah, and there was a big thing when they played here that time. When was that? 2021, I think. We made a big deal of it in the newspaper and talked to both brothers and talked to the family and had the pictures of them together on the pit. And they didn't dress Mathieu. He didn't play in that game. So, now do you dress a player? Like, I don't know what the situation there is to CF Montreal.
I really don't either.
You know, if a guy's requesting, you just say, okay, we hear your request, let's act like nothing happened. Maybe you do. I mean, players do request transfers, but it does eat away at some of the core of something. And they're very early in their season there. I don't know you want too many earworms inside your locker room, you know, like, so.
Well, it's true.
We'll see what happens. I haven't talked to any of the writers because we're focusing on Forge. I haven't talked to anybody in Montreal. I will. Before the game, I hope, and get some indication on what they're thinking about Choinière. I've got to call into CF Montreal to see if I can talk to Mathieu, and you know where that call is probably going to go. I don't know. Maybe maybe they will say go ahead. You know? But anyways, that's one of the factors, and then there was of course the year that they had the. I really thought they should have beat them in 21 here. I thought the Montreal took them lightly, and Ford said, "Yeah, at your peril." And it really came down to those, came down to shootouts and those kinds of things. So and then it could have been them, that won. So and they handled them pretty well. I think the next time they played, and Forge has that in their minds too. That was, I think, embarrassing when they not embarrassing. That's the wrong word, but
disappointing though. And
given who Forge are, they just take everything hard. Like, and they take it. Hey, wait a minute, we're the Forge. We can't, we can't go down there and get beaten. I don't care if the team's ranked, 150 places above us in CONCACAF.
Well, they know their quality, right? They know that they can compete and they can be right there with that MLS level of play.
I was going to say, for casual fans, I don't know what the numbers are right now, but the salary cap league, the CanPL, and whatever it is, $1.5 million or something like that, and there would be 6 players on their team making more than the whole Forge team makes put together, and a couple of players that make 7 times what the entire Forge makes put together.
Yeah, it's something to consider.
And they got some guys that can score. Lassiter and I want to look at the other one. Coqueiro's got 7 goals in 7 games. Long history in the game. Lassiter, same thing. He's got 9 goals in 9 games. So they got two goal a game players there. So you got to be prepared. The back line got to be prepared. And of course, it's unlikely that we're going to see Malik. We didn't see him yesterday, and I would think that just 4 days later or 5 days later, I'm not sure if he'll have time to recover, and we might not. Who knows how long we won't see him? And he was just playing so well. I think he'll get back quicker than most people think, more quicker than most people think. But why waste him right now? Hey, he's young. It's a very, very long season. Yeah. So, I don't think you want to take a chance.
You're right. We're only 4 weeks into this regular season. I don't see Bobby Smirniotis nor the rest of the coaching staff taking any risks, especially with what he's brought in such short time.
That's right. Yeah.
At least at the
beginning. The way he's won the respect of his teammates, And he did it by moving up the chain.
Hmm.
This is a classic, as we talked before. This is a classic development type situation. They paid for, especially back there in a very key position, a very vulnerable position. They paid with for some of his mistakes. He'd be the first guy to tell you that, and yet there he is. Like he's advancing. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
he's winning these guys over, and he's showing why. He's probably got a future here. That he's one of the guys that they'll end up getting a transfer fee for at some point.
Yeah, and I also have to give him off the field credit as well, because the morale that this guy brings on a daily basis is it's ridiculous. Like they talked about just Malik's energy and the way that he'll dance like more often than not in the locker room on the captain's log. And yeah, so just having him around, I think, is hugely beneficial to this team, and obviously very disappointing that he's not on the pitch right now. But still, you just know that he's providing something special on the sidelines.
Right, right, and he models too, right? Doesn't he model?
Does he? Oh, yes, he does. Wait, his clothing brand.
Yeah, he's been in the Paris Fashion Show twice. I think
Okay.
that's Malik, right?
Wait, are we talking about Benny? Benny's the model.
Oh, Benny Mass. Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah, Benny is the model, right? Sorry,
But
that's
to your point, Milty, you're not very far off because Malik
because he is a
starting-
clothes horse. Yeah,
Yes, he's starting a
Yeah.
clothing brand, and he's done a bunch of partnerships with other local brands. And if you check his Instagram, he looks like he's been doing like fashion modeling for quite some time.
yeah. No, it's good, and yeah, I find soccer players quite stylish, actually.
They are. I feel like just in general, he's got to take a look at some of those walk-in photos, Milty.
Yeah, they're really great.
We should get some. We should get walk-in.
Oh, I know. Yeah, there's, yeah.
Like back to back.
I would be described, I think, as a fire hydrant with a mop, a mop on his head, and so it's pretty hard to style that up.
Milty, come
I've been wearing the
on.
same. I've been wearing the same outfits since the '60s: sandals, blue jeans, t-shirt, sometimes a jacket, or
Hey.
one of these shirts. So
Don't fix what ain't broke.
okay. So but anyway, we should talk a little bit about Tuesday. I mean,
100%.
the logistics of this thing are incredible. We'll go over it. Do you want to give out the bones there, Mac, on what's happening on Tuesday?
absolutely. I was gonna let you take it away, but all I was gonna say is that I'm looking forward to it. 11 a.m. We've got tons of members of the community coming out, but so many kids. What sections exactly are sold out? Can you remind me? Because I have a feeling
The whole east side of the field gone.
gone.
Right. They had planned what they had wanted to do. The original goal was to do a couple of thousand more than the average Forge attendance, which I think last year climbed to 5,500 the average. So they probably wanted to get up to 70, but that was the original thing. Well, that went out the window on the very first day. They went to the schools. I think they went to the two Hamilton school boards first when they had to work out. Now we'll talk a little bit about the logistics of this in a minute, but they went to those boards, and the response was so heavy that now for sure they're going to double what normally comes to the game. So the entire other side is sold. So if you are a season ticket holder or had bought a casual ticket for the game, your seats aren't there. So they're going to be on the other side, and you can still buy tickets to these games. They're opened up. To the game, and if you buy a ticket, and we're not talking about the school kids, that's a whole different thing. They're taken care of by their schools and the program and the people who run the program for the Forge. And there's a lot more of them than meet the eye. There's a whole whack of people.
Yeah, I think it's over 10,000 kids or something.
Yeah, it's over 10,000. I think it's 220 buses. If I were a parent of one of those kids, come to a game, because they're going to be talking about this. This is a chance where this is a field trip that you can go on.
Yeah.
And if you buy a ticket, which will be on the west side of the field, which is the covered side for those of you, that's the tall side of the stadium for people that don't know. It's hard to know east, west, north, south.
Oh, totally. I still get it wrong.
Yeah, I get messed up all the time on it. And you get a free lunch to anybody who buys a ticket on that site, including subscribers. And the game time is unusual, so a lot of people maybe can't get there because it's 11 a.m. And it's the first school day game in Canadian Premier League, not the first one here in any sport here. The Bulldogs, and they got the idea really from the Bulldogs over the years, and they credit them. They went and studied how the Bulldogs did it. The planning for this started over 2 years ago. That's how long it's taken to put
Oh
it
my
together.
gosh. Well, no wonder it's been so well organized. It feels like a well-oiled machine in the way that the community group has been working on this. Yeah.
Do you know the other aspect of this, which is the educational aspect?
Keep on going, Milty.
This is something that when it's done well, it's done well. They're using Forge, and this is one of the reasons it took 2 years to put things together, as part of the curriculum. So some courses, now the kids that are coming from grade 5, I think to grade 11 or 12, and there are a number of courses, and I think if you go to the Hamilton District or Hamilton Wentworth District School Board, they'll have them up there. And I think it's only the public school board that has this. It's not the other ones because it's too hard to put together because it took them 2 years of work where they would work in modules. And they do this a lot, right? I mean, like there are many teachers or many courses that'll say, okay, we'll take music genres and build the whole course around it. And it isn't necessarily the music course. It can be the sociology, There are business studies courses in which they've been teaching the models of how the Forge does certain things, building websites, could be an economic development thing. Some of the cooking classes they have at schools are dealing with the menus and how do you. There are several, detailed courses with goals, and they run the whole semester with soccer and particularly Forge at the center of it. I haven't seen this yet, but it is ongoing, and that's why it took so long to put all this together, because it's an education, a total educational experience, and I applaud that.
I think it's so cool to see how Forge specifically has been integrated into curriculum. Yes. I think it's one thing to find that correlation, but it's another thing to really integrating it into projects and courses. And that's something that I actually did before I started working with the team. In my first year in my public relations class, I did a press release. And
actually, public relations is part of it. It's one of the business courses that they do. And I don't know how many kids took those courses, and I haven't talked to the Board of Education yet. Hopefully I get a chance to. May not, but you can remember, I always thought we didn't take many field trips when I was growing up, much more by the time my kids were going. And I always found that they had gone to something physically, and then they could relate it to something. And you know what? There's even math stuff, like striking a ball and the arc of. I read one of the math descriptions, and I went cross-eyed because I couldn't.
Well, yeah, it's probably like Tristan Borges scores from outside the 18-yard box. His the arc of his shot was equivalent to the slope of y equals mx plus whatever.
Right, exactly.
Totally, right. Yeah.
Yeah, you lost me after the Borges part, right? Yeah. Once we got, I got the Borges thing, okay, but that's the thing.
It's so
you get the Borges thing. You're in the math class anyways. Now you've seen Borges. I'm sure they've had film. The Borges would have, and they would have advised people to, hey, catch a game, and lots of kids have caught games with their local programs. And the other thing about this is that Stelco is picking up the tab essentially for 2,000 people that make the tickets are pretty cheap, but cheap is a relative term, and not everybody has disposable income for going to the game. So Stelco is helping out a great deal with that as part of their community outreach programs. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interweaving in all of this thing, and as I say, it's going to be by far the biggest school day game in Hamilton sports history. The first one in the CPL, and other people are looking at it.
Yeah, I have a feeling other organizations will be taking notes when they see this thing come to fruition. So
for sure. I think York will be down themselves looking at it, and I think Ottawa, somebody mentioned, might come around to have a look. They'll certainly be paying attention to it. They've already been talking to them about this kind of thing. And here's the other thing about logistics. This game was scheduled a long time ago, obviously, and then Canada Soccer releases when the playoffs for the national championship, the Canadian championship, come, and the winner had to play. The window was now.
Yes.
So this was supposed to be Halifax Wanderers coming in. So they had to work two parallel streams. Halifax didn't know until last night, and for sure, that they weren't coming here on Tuesday, 5 days from now. So all of those logistics had to go into it. And if Montreal had won, they had to, then Hamilton, obviously Halifax would have come in, but Montreal would have had to stage a game that wasn't on their schedule. So
there's a lot of moving parts here, and I think definitely throws Halifax off, for example, in their regular season schedule. It's not easy, let alone having a game at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, adjusting to it, and then canceling it, and then having to move around that. So.
It's funny. I was saying sometimes I confuse teams. I just said Montreal it would have been York would have had a game that they didn't know they had to play and reschedule one of their Montreal. Montreal always knew that because they had buy into this round. Right. They always knew that they were going to be playing on that day here and then or in one of the two places. But York didn't know. I mean, they were either going to go, and that's not unusual in something like a postseason tournament. You go to game, like for instance, if the Leafs lose tonight or they don't go, they're done for the year. And if they got to be prepared to go somewhere else, that kind of thing. So it does happen, but when you actually have to change the team that's coming in, and that's something.
Yeah, definitely an adjustment, mentally and obviously technically speaking. So let's leave it there, Milty. I feel like that's a good transition, considering that's the next match day we will be reviewing. I'm still thinking about your fire hydrant mop.
And I think
comparison. That's just crazy, but
I know I almost can't get a cut now because of that.
It's perfect. I love it. Thank you for your insight and your jokes as always. We'll be back very soon on the Audio Network.
Okay, Mac.
Okay, on that note, I will wrap up today's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in as always, and thank you to Steve Milton for providing all of his insight and giving us the rundown for this school day match. It's going to be really exciting, so I hope to see you all there. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, and be sure to do the same thing tomorrow because we've got episode 1 of season 2 for one of everybody's favorite series.
This has been Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, and share.